Greetings to the brightest audience in the country. Welcome to Real Science Radio. I'm Bob Enyart.
And I'm Fred Williams, creation speaker and software engineer. So, Bob, today I want to interview you on the 360-day-year calendar.
I get to be interviewed?
You do.
I like that.
This is a fascinating topic. When I first came across this, I'm like, wow, I never really thought about this. What's the deal between 360 days and the 365-day calendar, which is kind of strange that you have a calendar that's not precise. It's not 360 is a really cool divisible number.
Yeah.
So the primary question is, Bob, did ancient civilizations use a 360-day calendar?
So did they use one?
Yeah.
To start with.
And if so, then why? Why did they use one? So we're going to talk about a lot of data. You've done a ton of research, from the Mayans to the Egyptians, the Aztecs, the Indians, Babylonians, the Romans. There's a lot of data out there.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, the Sumerians, the ancient Greeks, the Chinese.
Yeah, that's right. The Chinese. Yeah.
And this is such an interesting topic that historians, scholars, even scientists, along with a few popular authors, have claimed that ancient civilizations used the 360-day annual calendar, but that just doesn't make sense, people think, because we know the year is 365 and a quarter days.
Yeah, if I buy a calendar, it's going to have 365 days on it.
Yeah,
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. Let me read this to you real quick. It says, it just so happens that all ancient calendars had 12 30-day months, which equal 360 days. These ancient calendars also had one solar year, which is 360. All of these 360 solar lunar year calendars suddenly began to change in the 8th century BC. It either a 365-day solar year or a lunar year 354. So today on the Jeremiah 29 Foundation podcast, we're going to break down according to scripture, since science does not have the explanation to this. And it is evident that all civilizations had a 360-day year prior to the 8th century BC. We're going to show you what the Holy Scriptures says to actually prove why and how we got what we have today. So buckle up, get your pens and papers ready, and let's take notes. The beginning of this presentation is proving the 13th month, but in the midst of proving the 13th month, we're going to prove and show that the Holy Scriptures is valid and it is the true answer to what the so-called scientists and archaeologists have stumbled upon and understanding how they got from 360 days to 365 and 354-day calendars. So, first slide. We know that the scriptures tell us this: let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So what light tells a day when it begins and ends? And we know it's the sun. What light tells when a month begins? And we know that's the moon. And what light tells when a season and year ends? And that's the stars. So Genesis 8:22 says, while the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Right? So these seasons are going to go on forever. Period, point blank. They should not cease because the Almighty spoken it. Job, the 38th chapter, the 32nd verse. It says, canst thou bring forth Mazarah in his season, or canst thou guide Arcturus and his son? And when you go through the Strong's Concordance, like if you look at my other videos, we talk about what is the Maserat and what is his seasons and what is Arcturus with his sons. What is the Maserat? The Maserat is Strong's H42 216, which means constellations, and Arcturus is Strong's 5906, which means the Great Bear. That's a constellation. This is Arcturus. We talked about this in my previous video of how the stars tell the seasons. So this is Arcturus. This is the Great Bear. This is what we know as the Big Dipper. And this is how the Big Dipper tells us our seasons. So we know that clearly by looking at this and the diagram that Arcturus, which is the Big Dipper, shows different signs predicated on what season that is in. So seeing this, what months are each season, right? So we got the first 2-3 seasons is the so-called spring. Then you get summer, which is 4, 5, and 6, right? Those is the midsummer, the summer, the hottest times of the year. It's the 4, 5, and 6 months of the year. The 7th month is the harvest or the fall, which is the 7th, 8th, and 9th. In winter, we got 10, 11, and 12, and sometimes the 13th month. And we're going to break down the 13th month. Job 39:2, it says, canst thou number the months that they fulfill, or knowest the time when they bring forth? So, in viewing the video that we watched earlier, like I said, scientists, archaeologists, all the various people that so-called are scholars had major trouble in understanding this simple premise of how did we get from 360 days in a year to 365.25 days in a year and 355 lunar days in a year. And like I said in the previous reading, that all civilizations, this wasn't just one or two, every civilization used a 360-day calendar before the 8th century, right? So now what happened in the 8th century? If anybody knows the 8th century, right, that was the time of a king that the Almighty loved, which was Hezekiah, right? And we'll read this in the book of the 2nd Kings, the 20th chapter, the 5th verse, the 11th verse. And he did something very, very profound. As a matter of fact, it was a great sign. Here it is, Hezekiah had asked. He said, how would I know that you will extend my life 15 years? And when you read that chapter, the Almighty said that he will extend his life. So he said, what is the sign? Yet this sign was so profound and so magnificent that this sign actually changed the whole entire world. And what we will do is we will break down how this sign that Hezekiah, that happened to Hezekiah, how it changed the 360 count to what we have today. So if you read that scripture, matter of fact, we can pull it up. If you read the 5 to 11, read those verses, you will see that he said that he will bring the sundial 10 degrees on Ahaz's sundial. And with bringing the sundial 10 degrees, that extended the day 10 degrees. So now, we're understanding that he brought the sun down 10 degrees. Now we're going to break down clearly what is 10 degrees. And we're also going to break down how did this even make the days transition. So first and foremost, we got to know that how many degrees are in a circle. So if you can clearly see, it's 360 degrees in a circle, right? How many hours are in a day, in a night, right? So it's 24 hours in a day, roughly 24 hours in a day and night, right? That's both the night and the day makes up 24-hour period. So when you tie together divide 360 degrees divided by the hours, which is 24 hours, you come to find that 15 degrees is 1 hour, right? So if I tell you that to go stand somewhere for 15 degrees, that's going to say go stand somewhere for an hour, right? If I say that I'll be back in the next 15 degrees, that lets you know I'll be back in an hour, right? 15 degrees is equal to an hour on a sundial. Now let's break down 15 degrees into minutes. Let's break down the hours into minutes. So we know that it's 60 minutes in an hour, right? This is evidence is simple. We know 60 minutes make up an hour, right? So then how are we going to find out how many will 1 degrees equal in minutes, right? So what we'll do, we'll take the 60 minutes and we're going to divide it by 15 degrees, which will give us 4 minutes. So every 4 minutes is 1 degrees on the sundial. Whenever a degree move, that's 4 minutes done pass that we done broke down, right? So now we know that Hezekiah, in the time of Hezekiah, he brought the sun back 10 degrees, which added more daylight. So he brought back the sundial 10 degrees, which means he brought back the sun 40 minutes, right? He brought the sun 40 minutes back. Now we're going to show you how 40 minutes of added daylight to the cycle of the already 360 time that we have now, how that affected what we have today. As you can read in the slide, by not setting the sun back, setting it back 10 degrees, 40 minutes of day was added to the year. So how to add in 40 minutes of daylight, which he added 40 minutes of light, brought the sun, he extended the light 40 minutes. How did that affect the 360 days? So we know that light is day and the dark is night from Genesis chapter 1. The sun rules the day and the moon rules the night, right? So if we were to set a 360 of light day and set 360 of dark night in our annual cycle, and we were to add 40 minutes to this cycle, so you got 360 day and 360 of darkness on one side. So by consequently, you're going to add 40 minutes to light to this equation. You're going to bring in an additional 40 minutes of light to each day of this 360 day and night, right? So now, if I was to multiply 40 minutes by 360 days, so we got 360 days and we was to add 40 minutes, how many minutes would that be, right? So now, that gives you 14,400 minutes. So now let's break these minutes down to hours. How many hours is 14,400 minutes? And that'll give you 240 hours of light that's brought into the year. So now with 240 hours, let's break it down to days. So we know 24 hours is in a day, right? So 24 hours is in a day. So that means that if all we're doing is dividing 240 hours to 24, which gives you 10 days. And this is how we added. So the Almighty added 10 days of light to the year by extending the light that was on the cycle of the 360 days. So now, if you look at it, so what does this have to do with the sun and the moon? When you add 10 days of light to a day and night cycle, remember, 360 days is not all light day and it's all not night. It's a collection of the night and the day, right? So by adding 10 days of light or adding 40 minutes that equal up to 10 days of light to that cycle, which comprise up of night and day, you're consequently taking away some of the darkness. It's just like if I got a cup of water and oil and I poured a cup of oil into the water, and I'm going to lose some water because the oil is going to fill it up. So if I'm adding more light to this already perfect 360, I'm going to lose some period of the night. That's just common sense. I cannot have more night. I cannot have more night if I'm adding more daylight into the year, right? So, but like I said, by consequently, you add 5 more days of the sun's solar year, which we know that the sun rules the day, right? The sun rules the day, period. And we know that the moon rules the night, period. So if I'm adding 10 days of light, I'm going to add 5 days to the solar calendar, and I'm going to take away 5 days of the lunar calendar, because we know that before this, that 360, when you count, both the sun and the moon moved on a 360 cycle. So by adding the light to it, which is daylight, to this 360 count, we know that the moon will consequently lose its days in this collection. Because why? The sun was extended, which caused it to have more light. The moon rules the night, not the day. The moon rules the night. The moon was not extended. The moon was not brought back. The moon kept its cycle going. The sun, which is what got extended. So what we have here is that you add 5 more days to the calendar. If a solar calendar, if you were only counting the sun, you will add 5 more days, which will give you a 365 day. And if you were only counting the moons, which is a lunar count, they call it a lunar calendar, you will get 355 days. It's real simple. It's real simple. The sun rules the day. The moon rules the night. You add more light to the cup, you're going to lose the dark, which is the night. So if I'm losing the night, I'm going to lose more of the moon's time, which lets me know that if I got 5 days of light and 5 days added on to the light of darkness, that's going to let me know that I got 365 of the solar days and only 355 of the lunar days. Why? Because the sun rules the day and the moon rules the night, and the moon did not alter its time, the sun did. Now, where did the 0.25 come from? Now, when you read in the book of Joshua, the 10th verse, 10th chapter, and the 12th chapter, we know that the sun and the moon stood still a whole day. But notice the difference between this period of time and the time of Hezekiah. The time of Joshua, they both stood still at the same time. But if you look at the time of Hezekiah, the Almighty never altered the moon, which it kept its cycle. It never stopped moving. The sun is what got brought back. So it allowed the moon to continue to move faster in the cycle. So if you look at the time of Joshua, the 0.25 days is what added on to that. It never stopped. Time never stops, because it says that it stood still a whole day. A day still had to go by. The day still had to pass. So if the sun and the moon stood still a whole day, then that allowed time to still continue to go by while the sun and moon stood still. But the sun and the moon never broke their cycle, which was 360. Now, what scriptures do we have to prove a 13th month? Okay, this is real simple. If you go to the book of Ezekiel, the first chapter, the first and second verse, you will read of this affliction that the Almighty told Ezekiel that he had to do to bear the iniquities of Israel and their wickedness, right? So in that time, he was to lay on his side for 430 days. And that date started on the 4th month, the 5th day of the month in the 5th year. That's when he started his affliction, the 430-day start. And then when you get to Ezekiel, the 8th chapter, the 12th verse, he ended his affliction, which is in the 6th month, the 5th day of the month in the 6th year. So now I'm going to show you a breakdown of how this proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was a 13th month. All right, so when you do the math, you start at the fourth month of the 5th day of the month. And if we were to count the cycles a month, let's say it's 30 days a month, and we say it's 30 days a month, period, right? So in order to finish this month out to get to the 5th month, because we starting on the 4th month of the year, of the 5th year, we starting on the 4th month. So to get from the 4th month, the 5th day of that month, to finish out that amount of days to get to the 5th month, it would take 25 days. Now we in a fresh 5th month. So we already got 25 days in the bank to get to the 5th month. Now we're going from the 5th month to the 6th month, which would be 30 days. Then it takes another 30 days to get from the 6th month to the 7th month, 30 days. From the 7th to the 8th, 30 days. The 8th to the 9th, 30 days. The 9th to the 10th, 30 days. The 10th to the 11th, 30 days. The 12th to the 11th to 12th, 30 days. And then from the 12th month to the 1st month, if it's not a 13th month, we're going from the 12th to the 1st. It's going to take 30 days. Then from the 1st to the 2nd, it's going to take 30 days. Then from the 2nd to the 3rd, it's going to take 30 days. Then the 3rd to the 4th, 30 days. 4th to 5th, 30 days. And the time he got up, which is from the 5th month to the 6th month, the 5th day of the 6th month in the 6th year, which will equal 35 days. Now, if we were to add up all these days, these collection of days, we will have to make this prophecy true here in Ezekiel. To make this prophecy true of 430 days, this would have to add up to 430 to at least for him to have done it. So when we add all of these up, what do we get? You only get 420 days. So my question to you would be, in 12 months, is 420 days enough for him to do this 430-day affliction? And the answer is no. The answer is no. Because there's no way that he could have done 430 days of laying on his sides in 420 days. That's impossible. With these two dates that's given to us, that is highly impossible. It ain't highly, it's impossible. It will never work, right? So the only way for this prophecy to be true is that it would have had to be a 13th month. So if you would have put a 13th month in this equation, after this 12th month and added the 30 days in between the 12th month, which would be a 13th month, that would give you 450 days. Plenty enough time for Ezekiel to fulfill his 430 days. There's no way he could have did it in 420 days. That's impossible. There's no way he could have done it. The only way he could have done it, it had to have been a 13th month in the middle of the 12th month and the first month, which would be a 13th month. So this shows that after Hezekiah, you can have a 13th month. If you were to use the moon to count months every 3 years, you would have a 13th extra month of winter. Because 355 lunar days in a year. And this is how the heathens always track the 13th month. They would look for a gopher, which is not the way the Almighty told us to look for. We use the lights. We use the stars. This is what tells us if we're in winter or we got another extra month of winter. Never are we going to look for a gopher if he sees his shadow. This ain't what we look for. The Almighty lets us know in Genesis 1:14 that the lights is what tells us our seasons. And these are for the seasons and years. Like I said, this is the time. The times are in the heavens. The fastest moving light is the sun. Then you have the moon. The moon tracks our months, and the stars tracks our seasons and years. And like I said, in the book of Daniel, it tells us clearly that the enemy has seek to change times and laws. If you read Daniel, the 7th chapter, the 25th verse, it clearly lets you know that. And that's exactly what they've done. And this is why they only follow the calendar of today is 365 days. They don't use the moon at all. They don't follow the moon at all. They only use the solar calendar. So you cannot have a new year in the same season. It's impossible. You cannot have a new year and it's still snow outside. You cannot have a new year and it's still winter. You cannot have a new year and the lights in Genesis 1:14 don't say that it's a new year. You cannot have a new year. And that new year comes in Abib, which is the green young ear. That's our new year. So, in conclusion, you have to use the sun, moon, and stars to tell time. You can't have a new day without the sun, and you can't have a new month without the moon, and you can't have a new year without the changing of seasons and stars. And the Almighty tells us in Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, the 46th verse, it said, if those ordinances depart from before me, said the Most High, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. So we know that this cycle is going to continue forever. And in truth, it's evident because, like I said, history is proving this fact. The 8th century BC, you clearly see that all civilizations had a 360-day year. It wasn't one or two, every last one. And this is why I know that the scriptures are valid and true, because science has not yet explained this phenomenon yet. Just like how all the languages got scattered from the Tower of Babel, all the calendars got scattered around the same period of time of Hezekiah. And when you do your research, the period of Hezekiah was around the 800th century BC. I mean, it's a perfect explanation, and it's actually scary to realize that the Almighty's word is so perfect. It's a mind-boggling thing, because how can you not have any answer for this? How can historians not have an answer for this? How can NASA? How can all the archaeologists and all the scholars not have an answer for this, but the very answer is in the Holy Scripture that most of us have on our dressers and our houses today. The Almighty's word reigns supreme. And I'm ending this out. Like the scriptures say, it said, every word of the Almighty is pure, and he's a shield to them that put their trust in him. So I just wanted to prove how we came from 12 months to 360-day year. And hopefully this opened people's eyes to how real the Almighty is, how real his word is. And I thank you. Shalom.